I'm really excited. We have a awesome guest with us, Greg Ekker from Sage Intacct, I'm going to say, who runs the professional services department that specializes in doing implementations internally for Sage Intacct. I had the pleasure of meeting Greg recently and was just having a conversation, said, hey, can I convince you to come on to this podcast that I do? And he agreed. I don't know why. I'm questioning.
I already regret it.
I'm questioning whether this is gonna be good for my my partnership with him and his team, but we'll figure it out. But let me not introduce you, Greg. Say hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Greg Ekker, as established. I'm the Vice President of Professional Services for Sage Intacct within Sage for North America. I joined in the Intacct side. We were acquired by Sage about 6 years ago. It's been a great ride. I joined in 2006, and I've been with Intacct for just had my 19th year anniversary, moving into my 19th year. And what else can I tell you? I've been doing consulting for about 30 years. I started in 1994 with what was known as the Big Six back in the day. I worked for the artist formerly known as Anderson Consulting, now Accenture, and then spent some years with Price Waterhouse so long ago that they merged with Coopers & Lybrand while I was there. So been around a while. And then after that, I worked at Indian-owned consultancy Infosys. We had a branch in the United States to do business transformation services. And then I got a call from a headhunter, as it happens, and I thought, this internet technology thing, that sounds kind of interesting. And
what year was this? Hold on. The internet technology thing. What year are we looking at here, Greg?
2005, 2006 or so, when I joined Intacct, the idea of a SaaS solution. So I remember early on when we do calls with prospects and we would have to explain what cloud technology was. Like nobody even understood how what do you mean you don't install anything at our facility? And obviously we're beyond those days, but initially that was a lot of the call, was just explaining to them how the infrastructure works. And I got a little trivia for you if you're interested.
Okay, come on.
Where did the term cloud technology come from? Why is it called the cloud?
Doug, do you have this?
I don't even have like a witty guess. No. Okay, bear in mind, some of us are more youthful on this call. So I'm the digital native. Okay, I'm used to it.
It's just in your blood. You know,
that's it. No,
I get it.
Matt, do you have any clue?
I don't know. I'm going with it's this like imaginary network, and the only way that we could describe it is it's like the clouds. It's just up there being would be my guess.
That's right. That's a good guess.
Comparable as my guess would be all of your data is just up in the clouds. Like it's not here. I don't know. What is it?
All right, Greg, come on.
Yeah, the big reveal. So supposedly, when internet technology came around, there was a technical architect doing a diagram of the infrastructure at their facility, and they were now using internet technology. And this person didn't know how to represent internet technology. Everything else was a rectangle or a box or a circle. So he made the internet technology a cloud shape on his diagram or her diagram, supposedly. And that was where the birth of the term cloud technology came from, was the cloud drawing of internet-based technology. I don't know if that's true.
Wow.
Learned that years ago. But
so you're saying
true, it's kind of interesting.
They could have easily, like the cloud as we know it, could have easily been like a cat if this guy just drew some random thing on this paper.
Right.
Like,
and from this point forward, we're going to refer to it as cat technology. I think we should do that.
Cat technology. Yeah. You heard it here first, folks. This is why everyone tunes in. All right.
Right.
Cutting edge banter.
Just game-changing information. Right.
Yeah.
But,
that's really interesting. And I want to go back here because I think you told me the first time that we met that you were the second person that was hired into the department that you now run.
That's right. Although I thought about it, I was third. I was the third services person. There were two already on the team, and myself and a good friend of mine, we joined at the same time. Didn't know each other at the time, but been great friends since. And that was in 2006, as I mentioned. And there was no really partner program at that point. So we did all the services. And as you can imagine, you're a scrappy small company. You can imagine what those projects were like. You sold what? So we put some controls and processes in place to have the services team members be part of the sales process. And that way, you're only signing up for what you agree to deliver. And we've really had those controls in ever since that, at least internally. So I have services sales team members. They participate in every opportunity that we're engaged in. They write the statement of work, and then the team that's going to deliver has the right to review that statement of work. So they're not signing up for anything that they haven't agreed to themselves, and that tends to work well.
It's really interesting that you bring that up. I talk internally to my team. It's like, our job as sales is not just to sell, it's to protect our delivery team, that, we maintain and deliver expectations to the client that our team can deliver on, because how else are we successful together? Because you know what happens if a salesperson sells and we don't implement right? The client delists and the salesperson doesn't get their commission. So
Right.
it's got
And
to
then
be
they call it a failed implementation. It was your fault that it didn't work.
right. It's an interesting play or balance. Now I have a question. So 2006, you start with Intacct. That's 10 or 11 years before Sage acquires Intacct. How many employees were there?
I would say less than 50, and a lot of them were. They started right around when I did. Things started to pick up as a business around that time. Got some investment money, and so built out a sales team. It was funny. I remember doing like an initial meet and greet, and we're all talking. Says, "How long you been here? 2 months. How long you been here? 20 days." And so there were a lot of new faces. And the amazing thing, and I think it says a lot about Intacct as a product, Sage as a company. Good product, good people. A lot of them are still with the company. As I mentioned, I've worked for a number of companies, and they always say the grass is always greener. When you've been around the block a little bit, when you have a good thing, and so why go anywhere else?
Well, and here you are 20 years later. That actually is really impressive today. It's like the new Nike guy. Did you see that resume that the guy who's running Nike now?
No,
I didn't see that.
Oh, it's hilarious. You look it up. He's been there forever. He started off as like a merchandising intern or some insane thing, and has just climbed the ladder all the way up to the top dog now. And it's hilarious. It's a legendary resume. It's one company all the way through and through. So it's pretty rare when you see it at 20 years like yourself now. I think that speaks volumes about the culture that they have there, which is kind of interesting. But to dive into some actual content, Greg, right out the gate, we'll get into best practices and great success stories at some point. But off the top of your head, can you think of the absolute hands down worst train wreck of an implementation you've ever seen? Feel free to redact names or companies if you need to, but I just got to hear, like, you've seen a lot. What just stands out as just, oh my God, that was horrible from the get-go?
Well, it was one that Matt here led, and I'm just kidding.
Totally Greg.
Kidding.
Damn.
No, totally joking. Matt's fantastic. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that, so I'm totally kidding. But I remember one that I actually did. It was really early on, and they wanted an on-site visit, which is rare because typically you deliver for cost purposes, and because it's internet-based technology, you can deliver all the services remotely. But they wanted us on site, so I went on site, and we were talking about the general ledger. And so I was explaining, you'll pull together your journal entries and the debits and credits, and then as long as it balances, we'll get that loaded. And the gentleman said, "All sounds great. I got everything you just said. I just have one question. What's a debit and what's a credit?" And I knew we were in a lot of trouble right then, since it's the foundation of the software, the financials. So quickly learned that they were oversold on the idea of the software, but really they were totally unqualified.
Wait, can you specify what industry roughly were you in? That, like, what was this company?
So this was, you remember there was that huge run of like mortgage refinancing. So it was a refi company, and they were growing like gangbusters just because that was hot at the time. And so they thought that this was the right software to scale the business. The problem was they knew how to get refi deals. They didn't have any idea how to run the financial side of the business. So it went south very quickly.
So this was what, 2007, I'm guessing, right before everything?
This was probably about 2007. You're right.
Okay.
So it was a small deal. The larger ones, nothing really jumps out. We've certainly had some challenging projects, but that one is in particular. We always joke on my team that we need to write a book of all of our Intacct experiences and all the kind of wild things that have happened over the years.
Isn't it really interesting, Greg, how sometimes the smallest implementations become the most challenging implementations, just from an expectation to delivery perspective?
Yeah, for sure. We also joke about how the smaller companies, they have the smaller requirements, but they tend to have less availability or knowledge of the business, or an understanding, and then the larger companies have the more complex, bigger requirements. So those are harder to solve, but they have the team available. So it's like sometimes you get that sweet spot where you got the people engaged, and they know what they need. But generally, there's usually challenges of some sort, no matter the project.
Well, I gotta give a shout out. I don't know what your experience has been internally, and maybe and maybe you're not doing as many of them. Is these pre-configured templates that your trusted practice solutions department has put out has
Yeah.
really supported the smaller business side and has actually kind of smoothed the process in a lot because from a expectation delivery we talk about sort of a standardized configuration process. We talk about an approach that is kind of limited, and now we're not opening the door to every possibility that is intact, but we talk about what is possible in the future. Have you had the same experience with that?
Yeah, so they're great, the trusted practice solutions. So I'm gonna toot my team's horn a little bit, but we had developed our own versions of that years ago, what was called the Sage Intacct Business Fundamentals template, as well as what was currently Sage Ahead for Software, a software-based, pre-configured environment, with the idea of accelerating go live, accepting best practices, because my team's done thousands of implementations over the years. So leverage that knowledge and then pre-build it so that you don't have to start from scratch every time. And the product management, which is a fantastic team here, they kind of picked up on that notion and then built the trusted practice solutions, which was by vertical and micro vertical. What are the most common things that customers need? And let's start there. And it, like you said, I think it's been great. It accelerates. It's great when you log in and you're showing a customer what they have, and they go, "Oh, that's me," and you haven't even talked about a requirement yet. So they've been very helpful. In terms of developing and technology, that's one of the game changing, I'll say, ways that product management is providing options for us to make implementations faster, quicker, easier. Other things that are being worked on. Something that I participated in my team, data migration service, affectionately known as DMS. So, as everyone knows, data is one of the big challenges in
The
an
pain point.
implementation. Yeah, the ETL, extract, transform, and load, the full process. So, what we've been trying to do is come up with easier ways to bring the data out of the legacy system, tools that transform it. With AI intelligence, auto deduping, recommended risk errors, automated fixes, things along those lines. More than just Excel, which is what a lot of people use, and then simplifying the load process, whether it's through APIs or intelligent interface to bring the data in. And so, product management, they work with my team a lot because they come up with great things, but we're on this, we're with the customer, so they bounce ideas off us to know, is this one of the values of having an internal services team is, you have people on the ground with the customer, and you can tap into that as you work on the product. So we've gotten a beta review of some of the new tools that look really exciting, in terms of data transformation and embedding logic into Intacct, so that when you have an extract, you don't have to transform it offline into a particular import template. It'll take the raw file and then suggest to you, based on analyzing the file, which columns mean what. And
Oh,
then you can store that as a map. So the next time you have that legacy system, you instantly have it, in essence, auto mapped from its raw extract. So there's a lot of really cool stuff on the horizon.
so I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm not going to say anything very specific, but I've heard some rumblings around a data migration tool that's being co-developed with maybe another partner that isn't beta with your team. Is that what we're talking about here?
No, this is a different offering. We worked on that as well, and we've done a number of projects leveraging that tool. Um, and what we want to make sure is that whatever tool we end up moving forward with is partner friendly, so it's easy for any partner to use those same tools. So we're still evaluating which way we're going to go. That's been successful, but we're just trying to see, what makes the most sense for the customer as well as all of our important partners.
So is this other product you're just talking about with the AI internally built, or is it
Yep.
it's not, so it's not even partner led, this one?
No, this one is right where you normally use the import template screen.
Yeah.
There's, I think, either they may be available now in beta, a handful of them, but there's new versions of them, so it'll be right in the product as opposed to using something third party, which is exciting.
Did you just give a little bit of a view under the curtain, if you want to put it that way, that as a partner I could ask to get beta into this new product and maybe see how it works from a data migration for my implementations?
I can't go that far because I will get killed by my product management team. But I don't know what their plan is in terms of testing these things out. I just know that they tend to use us because we're inside the walls,
No.
and we know each other so well through the years, so we just work well together.
So what you're saying is no to the public. Unfortunately,
I'm saying maybe. I'm saying I'm the wrong guy to ask, and if I give you a definite answer, I'm going to get in trouble.
no,
But
that's fair. That's fair. We don't want you to get in trouble. We don't want Sage to start not allowing people to come on the podcast and censoring it. So that's really exciting. That's really exciting. One of the things that I want to bring it back to is you said you were employee number 3. How many people do you have in your implementation department now?
Yeah, we have close to 40 at this point, which is just amazing. And I can say I mean, I literally love every single one. We have such a good team, just such good people who really care about the customers and their experience. Right now, we're organized into, we'll say, 4 practices. One is the services sales team, and they're focused on either new customers or existing customers who have additional needs. They get engaged and analyze the requirements, work with the solution consultants, and then put together the proposals and explain who we are, what we do, and why we do it, and how we do it as part of the sales process. And then the other practices are general business. So that's kind of a catch-all for healthcare, family office, NFP, you name it. And then a software and services practice separate from that, focused on those particular industries. And the reason we focus that is they tend to have some of the more complicated modules. So we thought dedicating folks to really become experts in those modules would benefit our customers. And then last but not least, we have an add-ons practice. So when we do sell additional services, customers live, they're buying a new module, we have a team dedicated to serving the existing customer base. And that could be advisory services, report development, you name it, whatever they're going through that they might need help with. We dedicated folks to make sure that goes well for them as well.
So I have to ask, how many concurrent implementations is your team of 40 doing at any given time?
So for new customers that aren't yet live, we typically have about 350 to 450 projects active at any given time. Each team is a combination of project managers and consultants, senior consultants, principal consultants. So every project has a dedicated project manager. They're usually juggling about 15 to 20 projects at any given time. And then a dedicated consultant or consultants, depending on the requirements and complexity and size. And they're usually juggling about 10 to 15 projects at any given time. And then our add-ons team has 300, 400 active projects, and that themselves. And that's usually because there's a lot of advisory. So it's kind of hit and miss as to when somebody might need some help. But yeah, we have generally a lot of projects going on at any given time.
The scale of this seems so different than what us as partners are accustomed to or build. Do you have insights into kind of what the difference is between what the typical partner's approach is to implementation versus maybe how your team is doing it, and kind of what, where you have come from initially to today and kind of best practices? Is there anything there that you can kind of like shed some light onto?
Sure. Yeah. So I work closely with the partner services team that they bring a lot of the things that we do, and they develop their own content as well, of course. But they try to share those things with the partner network, things that work. We're an experiment type group. So if somebody comes up with an idea, it's like, let's go try it. If it doesn't work, we don't have to do it twice, but let's never stop evolving and try things and see what happens. So one of the things we tried a number of years ago is if you're a methodology nerd at all, which maybe I am an implementation methodology nerd, there's classic model is what's called waterfall. You design it, you document everything, you get a sign off on those requirements, you then document all the solutions, you then go build it, you then go test it, and you go live. And I would say about 10 years ago or so, we realized, first of all, it takes forever. Second of all, usually once you go show the system, the requirements change. So all your documentation has to be updated. And then the reality is no one ever looks at the documents again once the project's over. So we reinvented the implementation methodology really specific to Intacct because we could with the Intacct product. And the reality is when you think about a build phase, classically that's building something. Whether it's coding, generally you're doing coding, but you don't do any of that with Intacct. It's all configuration based. So we don't need to build, we need to configure. So what we've developed is our own kind of what I call hybrid agile and methodology. And it's 4 phases: define, where we define the project plan, we define the initial primary requirements for the software. And then the next phase is configure. As I mentioned, there's no build. So we were explicit about that. And the way we do it is we go module by module. So we start with the core modules, GLAP, AR, or as some call it, GLAPper, and the company administration module, as well as cash management. So that's really the foundation. So we start there. We demonstrate everything the product can do live, rather than document everything. If we're really the product is the key. So let's get the product up and visible to the customer, so they already have an idea of what that's going to look like. What we also find doing it the old way was your requirements are based on what you've always done, but now you have new software and new possibilities. So by showing the software, that opens up customers to think differently and go, oh, I've never done that before. That's really neat. So then once we've done that for the core, we configure it all based on those walkthroughs or meetings. They go test that core set of modules, and then the customer signs off. So now we have our foundation in place. And then from there, we go to what I like to call the business management modules, things like purchasing, order entry, contracts, project costing and billing, you name it. And we layer that on top, and we do it, again, module by module, piecemeal, allowing the customer to focus, because it could be different resources at the customer in different modules. But it's not trying to do everything at once. And then once we've built, or I should say configured, all those additional modules, and they've tested them all and they've signed off on them all, we move to what's called system readiness. So we finalize all the data, any data that we need to get loaded that we haven't already. And after system readiness, they go live. And what we do as a best practice is we stay with our customers for 45 days after go live, a phase we call success assurance. So we want to be sure that they are using the system well. And what we found is you do about 90% of the same things month on month. So if we can get you through the first month,
Right.
generally you're going to be okay after that. And those additional 15 days are to help with that first month's book closing. And we make it 15 days because we want to. 15 days can be aggressive for some customers. We're trying to get that close even faster, but we want to put a little pressure on them to try to achieve at least 15 days. And then it gets easier and easier as you do it over and over again. But went into a lot of detail, but
No.
that's something that we invented ourselves. And actually I looked into patenting it for our team, but apparently methodologies are hard to patent. So that failed, but we've been using it ever since, and we find it to be lean and cost effective, and still end up with the same positive result.
So hold on, for anyone listening, kind of you just laid a lot on there, which is all really interesting stuff, kind of behind the scenes. But are there any general timelines from the sales process for like first contact to closed deal, and then day one implementation to go live? Are there any general like it's going to be a 3-month process on the sales side, it's going to be a 4-month process? What are some general guidelines that people can understand? Understanding that, of course, a larger enterprise account is going to take a lot longer versus a smaller, quicker one. Industry specialization probably plays a role. But do you have any general guidelines internally that you kind of go by or live by for those two pieces?
Yeah, it's a great question. The sales duration can vary. What I always recommend is if you have a go live date in mind, start buying 6-9 months before that. Allow time for the implementation. It's one of the biggest challenges that we have. The demos are so good and the SEs do such a great job that it looks easy. And then you get into the implementation, and we try to let customers know, assume on average you're going to spend about 10 to 15 hours per week on the implementation, doing various things in any given week. Could be at the learning center, learning about the product, or populating data templates, or doing a walkthrough and helping us design the configuration. But that's kind of the barometer. And then if they can contribute that, on average, projects usually go live in about 3 months or so. Again, it depends on what modules they're buying, their availability. As I highlighted, that's one of the biggest risk factors, is their availability for the project. But that's typically how long a project takes. And then the sales cycle really just varies, as you highlighted, by industry or by size, how many people are involved in the sales process. Another challenge we run into, especially with the larger organizations, is even the smaller ones, really, during the sales process, the people buying have a vision for how the software will improve the business, but then they're not the people who are doing the implementation. It's others. And so if they're not part of the sales process, when we go to engage, there are times where they don't even know what Intacct is because they just weren't involved. So it's another recommendation, is to make sure that people are going to use the software are part of the evaluation. They live it every day. They'll know best if it's going to meet their needs. And then that's just that much easier that they've bought in. So when we get to the project, they want to be a part of it. They see the value.
I have a question, because I want to see how we what's the right word, kind of compare to your team. I want to know the fastest implementation to go live that you've done from start to finish.
Post sales, like
completed. No.
We're signed up, ready to go.
Kickoff to go live.
So we offer a variety of services offerings. So we have what we call our bespoke implementation, which is we're starting from scratch. We're going to analyze your requirements. We're going to set the system up tailored exactly to your business cases. Those tend to be more thorough and longer. But we also offer what we call a services package, and that takes advantage of things like a TPS or some of the items I described. And those can go faster because you're relying on a pre-built environment, and the customer, if they understand what they're buying, are accepting that, hey, this is probably going to be 90% of the way there, but that's good enough, and it allows me to get live faster. So the fastest projects that we've done can be as quickly as 30 days. We can get a customer live in a month. We've had others.
You make me feel good, because we have done a couple in a 3 or 4 week period of time, but it's a sprint.
It's a sprint, and I always tell customers, you can get what you give, as the old saying goes. So don't think 10 to 15 hours a week in that scenario. It's going to take a lot more, but that's okay. If as the old saying goes, we'll give it the old college try. And if you can put in that time, we can definitely make that happen. And another offering that we have, it doesn't fit everybody, but we call it 0 days to go live. And it's really for former customers who've now moved to a new business. They know Intacct well. We'll provide them a pre-configured environment and some advisory services. And because they know how to use Intacct, they could theoretically go live the day it's provisioned for them, because they already know how to dive in and get work done. And then the advisory services are there if they run into any stumbling blocks or have any questions. Those don't come up too often, but we do have a number of people who've moved around to other businesses and they say, I want Intacct here. And that works for them as well.
So you have the ability to flip the switch within 24 hours, essentially, and get up and running. For someone who knows the system well.
Are you sure you actually want to tell people this, Greg?
It's not for everybody.
His sales team's sitting there like, God.
Right, salivating. But it's not for everybody. You got to be a former Intacct user who can demonstrate that they know what they're talking about. Otherwise, we're setting everybody up to fail. There's no point in buying something that isn't going to work.
Well, in case my team is listening, I have a personal goal that I'm constructing of how we deploy in 2 weeks for pre-configured templates, and we deploy and my concept is kind of a reverse implementation. I'm not going to go too far into that. I don't want to give away too many secrets, and I actually need to have it off recording conversation with Greg about my thought to make sure I'm not completely crazy. I think one of the key components of success with Intacct and what is really being driven from a leadership is how do we increase speed to delivery, speed to go live. That part of the complex nature of Intacct is that it takes so long, and it's hard from a sales perspective when somebody wants to get up right away, or when it comes to on a smaller business perspective, are they considering this versus a Intuit product or another product. So speed to delivery is an important part of how we can be successful as implementation partners.
Yeah, we're always, as my team knows, we're always trying to figure out new ways to make it faster, cheaper, and easier. We joke that if the sales process is kind of the honeymoon phase of the whole experience, the implementation is the marriage 20 years later. It can be tough, and so the easier we can make it for customers, the better experience they can have. The less we have to have them involved in defining what they need, the more we can give them right out of the box. It just makes it that much better for them. And I know, and I highlighted the data migration elements. We talked about the TPSs. It is definitely a focus to try to, reduce the effort and cost and duration of an implementation. And the good news is, service providers might think, well, that puts us at risk. It really doesn't. It just means you may be working on more things at any given time, but the volume will be there, as opposed to the heavy hours on any particular project.
Look, I think as service providers, we need to focus on value-added services. What is phase 2 and 3 after go live? How can we show clients how to really extend the product? How can we use smart events and smart rules? How can we show them the deep customization of reporting? How can we show them that dashboards can be that much more for them? How can we really get the client to reinvest the money that they spent previously on the implementation into really value-added solutions that Intacct provides? That's my mentality. The implementation is kind of, you think about data migration. We're worried about old data that people really, they think they care about, but they really don't, because they care about where they're going forward. Implementation, we're focused on how they're operating today, because we're trying to get them into a product in the way that they're operating today, not about how they could operate later. So from my side of things, it's like, that's all kind of we have to do, not the how we actually create the long-term value. And I've used that word enough times now, with the long-term success for the customers. So I'm with you. Keep doing what you're doing. Let's make these implementations easier, faster, and smarter, is my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you highlighted something which a lot of customers struggle with is, I just want to get up and running. I want to be on my new system, but there's so much that Intacct can do that transforms the way you do business. And it's hard to get all that done and get live and just using. So you highlight a really good point, which is, the implementation is just a milestone when it's over. It's not the end of the journey.
Right.
You should really be thinking about that phase 2 and phase 3, and how do we make it more than just a ledger or a transaction recording machine, but actually take advantage of the multiple dimensions, the advanced report writers, the dashboards, the APIs to do integrations or push data in and out. There's just so many possibilities. I don't want to overwhelm, but at the same time, you gotta think a little different. And this isn't just recording transactions anymore. You can do so much more.
Now, here, I'm going to try to get you in trouble, and you could plead the fifth if you want. Tell me your least favorite module in Intacct.
There's no such thing. I don't know what you're talking about.
He just pled the fifth. Did you hear that, Doug?
Yeah, there's about 20 seconds we just cut out of this thing. So I don't know. The tape is gone.
It's like asking, who's your favorite child? You can't. There's no such thing.
Everybody has one. Come on.
Well, I was gonna say, I tell both of my kids they're my favorite when the other one's not around, and they'll eventually figure it out.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully they don't talk.
Yeah. That and the fact that they're not even your kids. That's they'll figure it all out one day. But Greg, you've kind of talked about a lot of the advancements. Different features that are coming. Kind of what's down the pipeline from a development standpoint. Is there kind of an internal, maybe even this is like a personal goal for you, where we want implementation time to get to here? Is it like we want 3 weeks across the board? Understanding it's going to vary a little bit, but do you have some type of goal from that perspective on how to get these things quicker, leaner, faster?
Not necessarily a goal. I'm not establishing a duration up front. Different projects vary, customers vary. So I try to keep that in mind, and I wouldn't want to put that kind of pressure on my team to artificially achieve something just because it sounds good. Back to Matt's point, we want to protect those who do the service.
Yep.
But it's a great question. So the way we try to do that is learning through past projects. What things take less time than we estimated? Can we reduce our estimates? How could we do something differently, like taking advantage of TPSs, for example, that could reduce effort? So we're constantly refining how we do things and questioning the way we've done things in the past. And the good news with Intacct is, as there's 4 releases a year of new features and functionality that come out from product management. So how do those things change what we do that might make things easier than they were in the past? It's funny because so we use a pricing modeler to estimate what we think a project will take in terms of duration and effort. And it's all based on conversations in the sales process that my services sales team does. But that thing has changed 1,000 times in the past 19 years. I mean, it's constantly being evolved. I looked at one about 6 months ago, one of my original ones that I built from like 2007 or 8. It's just comical. I mean, the product's so much bigger, but also just our approach to figuring out what it takes has evolved significantly. And that's not all me. I mean, it's a credit to the team as well. It takes the whole team to really transform the way we do things.
And part of the evolution, I'm sure, is continuous advancement in technology, of course. But you brought up something earlier too, the cloud accounting, in the sense that, so I do a lot of M&A transactions of accounting firm to accounting firm transaction. And occasionally my team trips across a firm that's so legacy run that they're not even in the cloud. They're quite literally still doing everything on paper, file cabinets, hosting on site, all that fun stuff. Do you come across that still in any industries that you work in where people are looking to explore Intacct, but then you go in and you go, wow, we're so far away from even trying to implement this because of these legacy systems that are in place? Or is that something you see regularly still? Or like, can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, we do. It's usually smaller businesses, not picking on any vertical per se, but it tends to be like a smaller business that has reached a point where they may feel that I need to take advantage of this new technology. Everybody's talking about, SaaS solutions and things like that, but they don't really understand what they're getting. We had a customer not that long ago who, on our kickoff call for the project, he said, "When can I expect you here to set everything up?" And, it's cloud-based accounting and financial management software. So we were like, well, never, because it's all in the cloud. You should have received a provisioning notice. That's how you log in, et cetera, et cetera. But literally it was this year, 2024, where they were expecting us to come on site and set up machines.
Yeah, like install a server on site.
Yep.
That's interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. Intacct, or Sage, I should say, Sage is very much a partner-led organization. That's kind of the business model. Now, obviously, you're an internal team doing implementations. What's the thought process around deciding whether to take a project internally versus bringing a partner in? What does that look like from a decision-making process?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of factors. Geography could be part of it, size, past experiences, success record. Sage also likes to consider, fairly or unfairly, what has the partner done for Sage? We like to reward our partners who bring us business, who, contribute in other ways. And by deciding on a direct new opportunity, which service provider is going to be selected, those are some of the factors. As far as whether internally, it's really a lot of the same things. Is it a strategic customer that we want to keep close? Do we have capacity and we just need business? It could be a variety of things, but it's, attempted to be done intelligently and fairly, and absolutely that such a strong partner network, and they're so important to the success of Sage and Intacct. And a spawning question from that is, so how do you guys exist if it's all partner driven? So as I highlighted, that there's ways in which we can be utilized strategically. Obviously, we work with product management. We take on certain projects, we take on certain challenges that you might not put onto a partner because maybe it wouldn't be profitable. So we're a break-even organization, whereas a partner might, obviously a services-led partner, they're looking to generate revenue, as you highlighted, phase 2, phase 3. That's not our focus as much as customer having success. The subscription is the key. So hopefully that gave you some insight into the question.
So what you're saying to all the partners that are listening, that Christmas gifts are really helpful in the overall Sage ecosystem.
No, definitely.
Yes.
No, not corrupting the purchasing and decision-making process.
I know.
No.
No.
Greg's like,
Just to you personally, Greg.
Oh, well, in that case,
Yes,
no.
yeah. And your home address, just for all of our listeners, just so everybody knows your home address.
No, nothing like that.
no. Look,
I used to do. I previously worked at a company where we did buyer and spend management consulting, and that was one of the first rules: is no gifts, no corruption, and no corrupting the decision making process of which vendors to use and things like that. So we would never do that.
No, and absolute joke. I think the important part there that you highlighted is aligning the right partner with the right customer based on skill set, culture, perspective.
Absolutely.
And just
what's most important: being live fast, cost. We have partners. We're fortunate. We have partners who what industry are they in? Do they want particular expertise? They may be moving to Intacct, but they also need accounting services as well, or an outsourced CFO, or they want industry expertise to evolve their business. And so those are also factors as to fortunately, we have so many great partners that we can line those things up and give a customer a great experience.
Well, what I can attest to is just sort of like the approach that I've seen with our own firm and how we're brought into specific deals, but there's other times where we've been asked questions and we'll say, hey, it's probably not the best place for us to, I don't know that we can bring success for that deal because of X, Y, or Z, and we can have that open conversation, whether that's with yourself or with the sales reps, the RVPs, or whoever's in that process at the time of assessment. I appreciate that because, at the end of the day, if I'm not getting good reviews, if I'm not being successful as an implementer, it's going to tarnish my ability to have trust, or it's going to break down that trust with Intacct, with Sage. And so that's a really important part of what that looks like. And I'm really happy with sort of how that's been approached, at least for us. And I can't speak for other partners, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you highlight something that's important, is that trust and a healthy relationship, communication, and say no one is trying to force anybody to do something that they're not comfortable with, and we do have that back and forth open dialogue. Hey, this is not one for us, and that's okay. We'll find you a different one, and that ability to not just take it and actually be able to share your thoughts and feelings on what's been provided to you is really a testament to the culture. It's not always like that at companies where things are forced on people and you have to deal with it. It definitely, if that's happening, let me know. But it's definitely not the case here.
No, look, I've felt very supported around the process, and so I just wanted to highlight that. All jokes aside, I think that alignment of opportunities with appropriate solution providers is a key. Because what I've always talked about internally, and whoever else will listen to me, is the success of implementations isn't just about that one implementation. It's about the entire ecosystem. So if there's good reviews across the board, we're going to gain trust of the customers. We're going to be able to increase market share. And we, as a collective group of providers of Intacct solutions, of Sage solutions, can lean on that from our own sales process, our own close process. And if we start seeing degradation in quality, that then becomes, and we all know, a client is far more likely to tell you about a bad experience than a good one.
Right. I call that good tie, bad tie. When you wear a good tie, no one notices, but when you wear a bad tie, everyone notices.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to protect that and protect that brand. With that being said, I think we're getting close to our closing time here. Doug, any last questions?
Yeah, last one for you, Greg. And it's
sure.
We've not really plugged anything this whole time, right? So I'll give you the opportunity to just crap all over your competitors. No. If somebody's considering a change, honestly, just as in the least salesy way you can possibly imagine, why Sage Intacct?
Well, I would say, as I highlighted at the beginning, good product, good people. I've had a 30-year career. I've been here 19 years of that. And I think that's a testament to why you would want to work with a company and use the software of Sage Intacct. It's people like that who care, who have been here a long time, who want to do the right thing, and that culture is critical. As I often say, and my team would laugh because they hear it enough, but we're the people who tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that's not always an easy message to deliver or receive, but that's the person you want to partner with and trust. Because anybody can tell you what you want to hear, and that's how they get you to buy. But we'll tell you when it's not the right thing, or that no, that's not possible. Here's what's possible, and that's okay. And those are reasons why I think Sage Intacct is, in the least salesy way I can, Sage Intacct is a great option for people to choose.
Like that. And to cap it, so I usually throw out a terrible dad joke at the end of these things. Matt attempted one or two to date.
No, it was one, and I'm never doing it again.
Yeah, sorry, he's not funny. He's not enjoyable to listen to. He doesn't know any jokes. Now, so Greg, I gotta know, do you have a good dad joke on hand?
So here's the thing: is my family ridicules me for my terrible jokes, my dad jokes. And for some reason or another, nothing is coming to me right now, which is just going to disappoint everyone in my household. But I need a minute to come up with one. It's crazy that nothing's just popping into my head.
You got to give me the last one you did. How about that? Let's throw that one out there.
Oh, why didn't Adam and Eve have a date?
Oh, I'm going to say something about an apple. Something
right,
with an apple.
Had an apple, not a date.
Oh, jeez.
It's terrible.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. Terrible dad jokes.
That is horrendous.
But it is enjoyable.
Hopefully nobody's ears are bleeding after hearing that. But
no, just from the first 40 minutes of this thing, not the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Greg, thanks for joining us. Honestly, this has been interesting to get the insider view. Hope to have you back at some point down the road too, so we can get some updates on some of the kind of future, little teases you dropped out here and some of the features coming out.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to be back. I've had a great time. You guys are a lot of fun to talk to and ask great questions. So I'm happy to come back anytime. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I do appreciate it, and I do want to say one thing that should be highlighted here. I mean, having somebody like yourself at Sage Intacct, running the professional services, having that knowledge of 19 years, really coming out and understanding where the product has come from and where it's going. I think that is such a differentiator within the ecosystem, because I'm sure that other products, I've seen many people in your position come and go, and they don't have that background. They don't have that history that allows you to do the job that you do. And so I think that is super important to the success of how Intacct is operated. So I want to say that. Thank you. It was wonderful to have you on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We'll get you back here. Don't worry.
Sounds good to me. I'll have another dad joke. I'll be prepared this time.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, there we go. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Take care.